it's very friendly, isn't it? No, but I mean, it felt quick.
It did. It pushed you back into the seat a little bit.
Everything is a touch-sensitive button in here, including... This is the Volkswagen ID.4. It's a 2024 model, but it was released in 2020. When this thing came out, it kind of had mixed receptions, didn't it? I mean, on the one hand, didn't you say it won Car of the Year?
Yeah, 2021. Yeah,
Car of the Year. That's pretty high acclaim. But then others sort of said there were quite a few things that detracted from it. So I kind of want to unpack that and see 4 years after its launch, had they resolved a lot of those things. Setting off in the ID.4. Ready?
Let's do it.
Oi! That is surprisingly decent for the base model.
That's a little bit of flavor right there.
There's 100. So according to the timing gear, 0 to 100 in 8.4 seconds. To be fair, that is slightly uphill, and there's two of us in the car. So weirdly, it felt a lot faster than that though.
Yeah.
Because 8 seconds, 0 to 100 Ks, which is 0 to 60, 62 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You know, anywhere around 5 seconds is typically considered quick.
Okay.
8 seconds is certainly not fast, but it felt quick.
It did. It pushed you back into the seat a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe
that
that's just that instant torque from EV that kind of everyone talks about, to be fair.
Yeah.
But
the God of EV, I give you instant torque.
I believe in you and I pray to you every day. You know what? I think this is more than enough power for daily driving. Like, I don't feel any lack for power there.
No, certainly not.
So this is the base model, which has about 200 horsepower, 150 kilowatts. And in terms of torque, 310 Newton meters, which is around 230 pound-foot of torque. Now, just putting that in perspective, that Touareg we drove had 900 Newton meters.
Oh, shit.
Torque, so 3 times the torque.
Yeah.
However, yes, it was obviously much faster, and it was 0 to 100 in under 5 seconds. But
that lack of latency really does give you a different feeling.
Yes, definitely. The instant torque of this EV, the motor and battery combination is just... It's hard. You can't beat it with an internal combustion engine in terms of its immediacy.
Yeah.
So there's like a bit of a kind of smoke and mirror effect here because it's obviously on paper much slower, but it still feels really good.
Yes, it does. Nimble.
And for me, the feeling of acceleration means more to me than what it says on paper because it's the feeling of acceleration that I enjoy.
Yeah.
Of course, you want to make sure you've got enough power to actually be able to, say, get away from a traffic light, up a hill. And, you know, you might be in a sticky
next
situation.
To a steamroller, yeah.
When you're drag racing a steamroller,
yes,
right?
Classic.
That's when you want the power. But no, I mean, like you want to have sufficient power so that you don't feel like it's getting in the way. And this has more than enough.
Yeah.
So claimed 450, 500 Ks of range, which is around 300 miles. Mm-hmm. You've been testing this car for about a week.
Yep.
What have you noticed?
I think it's accurate. Getting about 400. Oh, yeah. 420 kilometers of range, I think, thereabouts. Yeah, never felt any like qualms or anything because you can always hook it up to any.
I hate a qualm.
Good. Well, there's no qualms.
Good. I hate qualms.
You can always hook it up to AC power or find a charger in the area, and the infrastructure's only getting better and better. Yeah.
I mean, for again, daily driving, more than enough.
Yeah.
Similar to the power, it's a kind of more than enough mentality that really does this car a lot of service. So yeah, it's not the highest in its class. I mean, certainly the Tesla Model Y, the base model has more power, has more range, and better tech in general.
Yep.
So it comes back to, well, what has this car got going for it?
For the dollar spent, you are getting value, and that's kind of what the buyer of this car would be looking for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, flooring it again there, it's just sails away nicely. That's 0 to 80 Ks in sort of no time.
Yeah.
And again, it's a nice, pleasant feeling of acceleration too.
Yeah.
They've calibrated it quite well. It's not jerky.
No.
It's nice and responsive and linear and predictable. And it's not just necessarily the power as well. The handling, I think, is decent. So going around this corner with a bit of a pep, it holds its ground pretty well.
Yeah.
It's certainly no go-kart.
Yep.
But you wouldn't expect it to be.
It's over 2 tons.
Yeah.
You'd expect it to hold to the road pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can feel that weight around the corner.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even in sport mode, right? The steering is light.
Yeah.
And a little sort of squishy. It's kind of like feels like the accelerator, all the inputs, the accelerator, the steering wheel, and everything. It's almost like it's coated in honey. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's all very smooth.
Okay.
And so, by way of that, there's very little feedback, if you will. It's not a highly engaging kind of feeling car to drive.
I think the honey analogy is perfect because, in some senses, like you like that stimulation, like the sweetness of the honey, but you don't want it on your fingers because then it's all sticky. That's not pleasant.
It depends who you are. I mean, I always
Pooh Bear.
Pooh Bear would love it, man.
Yeah.
That is one weird thing about this car that I've noticed. I have driven other EVs, and commonly there's this one pedal driving system, right, where you can essentially brake the car by taking your foot off the accelerator.
Yeah.
And that engages the regen braking. I believe Volkswagen's approach is that they think the longer you can coast and take advantage of the momentum of the car, the longer the range you will get.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
The problem with that, because I get it, the problem with that is that I don't think that's how people drive.
Okay.
I believe that people's driving behavior is they continue to sort of accelerate, or at least keep their foot on the accelerator until they need to stop, and then they suddenly put the brake on.
Unfortunately, I think that you're right to a huge degree. I actually like to coast.
Yeah.
I do take
You're a
my foot
coaster.
off. Yeah, I indeed.
I'm keen to get some of your thoughts on how this thing drives and handles. Well, fine, video's finished.
Yeah, it doesn't rip in the same way as like all of the other cars that we've driven really so far.
Sure. This is the only non-performance car we've driven, though, to be fair.
Yeah.
And it holds up.
It does hold up all right. I mean, it's an EV as well. Like people don't, I think, go out looking for these cars and look for performance because it doesn't have the same feeling. You don't get the same rush when you hear the like revs go up on an ICE engine and you feel like something thunk into gear and you really get that push back into your seat and it's just.
I think you're right. Many of the buyers, especially of this car, people aren't looking at it for performance.
No. Yeah. So pleasure to drive, very comfortable, fitted with all of the modern conveniences that you would expect in a 2024 car. I've been driving it for a couple of weeks now and done a couple of trips out of Auckland and being very comfortable, fit all of the kids extra stuff that we needed to and being just like a great ride.
Yeah, nice.
So hey, should we jump out and check out the exterior?
Yeah, let's do it. What do you think about the way this thing looks?
I think it's good. The two-tone down the bottom, I think it takes up a little bit too much of the plastic down the bottom. Yeah. Overall, it just, SUVs, difficult to distinguish them and make them, truly stand out. But I like it.
Yeah. Oh, I quite like the styling too. I do think it's like really friendly and approachable, and they didn't really take any risks with it.
Oh, mate.
Well, it's very friendly, isn't it? No, but I mean, as in they didn't take any risks, and I think they did that on purpose, surely, because they knew that being one of their first kind of global electric vehicles, meaning that is available worldwide without kind of any major changes between the models, is that they knew they had to kind of appease to the general crowd, right? And I think that's what Tesla did with their styling. It was one of the reasons that Tesla was so successful. Yeah, because they had really inoffensive styling. They didn't really take any risks, right? Okay. And so I think it has that going for it. I also think that's potentially a strike against it as well. Okay. And the reason why I think that is because Volkswagen, they already have an established design language, right? Throughout all their other models that they're known for, the Golf, the Tiguan, et cetera, et cetera. And they could have leaned into that established styling to, help the people that like Volkswagens buy into it a bit more.
Do you think that this doesn't bridge that at all? Do you think that this is so separate that
No, I don't think it's that separate, but I do think you could get rid of the Volkswagen badge and put a BYD badge there, and it could possibly work, and you'd think it's a BYD. That's just my personal opinion. I may be wrong about that, and I did, do some reading in forums, and it is truly a mixed reception about the way it looks. A lot of people do appreciate how it's kind of inoffensive and friendly and approachable, and others wish they did take a few more risks on the styling side.
So I beg to differ on that. I think that there needs to be some sort of distinction in terms of the styling and how it's presented and put out.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, I mean, on the whole, I think it's a decent looking car. Like, it's certainly not ugly or anything of the sort. I wonder though, is it a head turner? Do people watch it go past? Yeah,
no, definitely not a head turner.
But I mean, the kind of buyer for one of these probably isn't looking for a head turner.
I think I've only ever seen maybe 3 or 4 SUVs where I actually would be like, oh,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, in that same sort of tone of voice.
yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. I did read that one thing that people are kind of upset about is that it has no frunk. So it has no...
It does not have a frunk, yeah.
Which is interesting, Because, I mean, the thing is, being a completely, from the ground up, purpose-built EV vehicle, one of the benefits of that is packaging, right? And so you have more room to work with, and you should have some spare space at the front. But they chose to put a bunch of other things in there.
Question. How big are the frunks that you generally see, though? Most of them under 30 litres, right?
Oh, yeah, they're not big.
And what are you going to... You're going to chuck your charge cables in there,
Probably,
right?
yeah.
And for this one, it's got that
under boot storage?
I don't know what
under
you
the
call
thing.
it,
Yeah, I
under
know what
the-
you're talking
yeah,
about.
you pull up the flap
the under the sea. Deep dive.
Down where it's better, down where it's wetter. Take it from me.
Oh,
I don't know.
Are those the lyrics? I hope those are
Maybe.
lyrics. Okay.
It is.
I hope it's not an original poem.
No.
Okay.
Were you doing The Little Mermaid?
Obviously, it's not a deal breaker because these things are still selling.
I think that when you have one car set a benchmark and they've said, benchmark standard is that there is a frunk and someone else doesn't include that, everyone just throws up and goes, what? Where's my frunk?
What are you doing? On the inside of the ID.4. Whoa, this is, I mean, it's interesting. It reminds me of a Prius in some ways, and that's not actually meant to be a negative thing. But, I mean, the Prius
for some
is a
reason
very,
it does come across as a negative.
It's one of the world's
thing.
most popular vehicles. It's not meant to be negative. What I mean by that is this small screen here reminds me of what some of the newer Priuses have.
Okay.
I'm not used to seeing this in Volkswagen's lineup, this sort of tiny instrument cluster behind the steering wheel. I'm used to seeing, obviously, the full width, larger screen or dials. So that's immediately that hits me coming into the ID series. And then there's quite a few other things happening in here that I want to talk about. But before I get into that, I want to hear your overall thoughts about the inside of this car.
I think it's very comfortable. I think it's quite spacious. I think that's something you were talking about on the way over. It does have a few of those more premium features, like the stitching on the inside of the steering wheel here and across the dash. It is relatively simple in terms of like the screen and the infotainment system. A couple of really annoying things. If you're wanting to use music, you can't skip ahead or rewind anything on here, and you can't change fan speeds, which is, I think, a little bit ridiculous.
You can't change fan speeds. Surely in the climate menu you can.
You have to go into the climate menu to do it.
Right.
But here they've said you can adjust the temperature on both sides. Surely, it would be better if you could do something else.
Yeah. So I mean, and this leads into, I guess, some of the most contentious areas about this vehicle, right, is the infotainment and the user interface, because everything is a touch sensitive button in here, including I'm getting sensitive, but in a way that's kind of detracting from the experience, right? Because I mean, sometimes you can accidentally brush over one of these on the steering wheel and it does something you don't want it to do.
Yes.
The climate controls, I mean, this is widely spoken about in most of the new Volkswagens. They are a pain to deal with, and they're not even lit at night, right? So it's difficult to see them. Apart from that, though, it's a nice place to be. Again, it's similar to the outside in that it's fairly simple, it's inoffensive, but it still doesn't scream Volkswagen to me. No, it doesn't.
Okay.
But look, again, this is a brand new series of products, and of course, like I said, they want to separate it out from the rest of the lineup in some ways. But
voice control has been cancelled because it has been paused.
Great, thanks for that.
Something I really like about this car, actually.
Oh yeah.
For long drives.
Yeah, man.
Not so much in the city, but surprisingly comfortable and useful.
I like that. Honestly, that's actually handy as. Actually, this is making it for me. I didn't really think of that, but that's comfy.
Simple features,
man. I'm sold.
And another thing that makes it feel a little bit more premium as well. I touched on the stitching before, but also the LED lighting that they have in here coming along the dash.
Yes,
and that does
and it comes
bring
standard
it into the space age a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. The LED lighting does certainly help, and it's all kind of hedging their bets on what's going to resonate with the market and what's not. Cool. I think that BMW in particular have played it right in the sense that they've been using their existing internal combustion engine vehicles but having EV versions of it, and those have been selling really well. Like in 2024, the BMW i4 outsold every single EV from Audi. So one model from BMW.
Seriously?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's several reasons for that, but one of them is that BMW i4 is familiar, looks just like the internal combustion engine, so you don't feel like you're separating yourself out of the brand with this completely different look and feel and ostracizing yourself.
Yeah, I'd almost want there to be some kind of distinction. I'd want there to be some sort of design choice that made it look different and its own thing.
Yeah,
That's
well,
personal preference.
exactly, man. And there clearly are many people out there like you who do want the separate experience and want to feel like they're in an EV because their values and their preferences align with that. Then there are those who are attached to the old way of doing things and they want that familiarity of, what they're used to and what they think looks good.
That's not how we do it. We do it like this.
I mean, and I think I'm one of those people. I'm ashamed to admit it, but like I do prefer the sort of traditional dash layout. So when we're going back to that Volkswagen Touareg, I do prefer that interior to this interior, and you would hope so too, because I mean that vehicle is worth 3-4 times more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. but then that really is the crux of this vehicle, is its pricing point, and I think that is not the $1 million question. It's actually, in this case, $50,000 New Zealand question, which is what, 25-30 US.
Yeah, which is a really good price point.
Really good price point. And I
get.
think that is where the sweet spot of this vehicle comes into play. So should we talk about that in the summary?
Let's do it. It's really hard to come up with something to say about it other than
That's how you feel? Okay.
Yeah. Like
You don't feel strongly one way or another.
Not strongly. It was pleasant. I mean, but no one got cholera or anything, so that's good.
Yeah, that's ideal. I mean, that is ideal. I was worried one of us would get that. But you know what though? The thing is, and we can't talk about this package of a vehicle without talking about its price, because all things point back to price, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they've priced it so well.
They did.
You get your foot into the Volkswagen brand. Yes, it's at an entry level, but you get a lot of some of their best qualities for a very low price compared to its competitors.
And that is the feature that will tip it from to
Yeah, I agree. I guess let's see where they go with it. But for now, if you're someone looking for a pleasant daily driving vehicle for a cheap, affordable price, new anyway, this is probably one of the models to get. Certainly one to put in your shortlist.
Certainly.
With certainty.
I'm so certain of this.